So in last week's video, whenever I was talking about the Glassway, I said that it was the hardest strike to do for Grandmasters in the entire game, or at least one of them. And that if you could do that, you can do the others. That still holds true, because after you've done the Glassway, Insight Terminus is a piece of cake. Heads up everybody, my name is SentinelGray, and welcome to the channel. Insight Terminus is a pretty easy Grandmaster to take on. You might think about all the numerous amounts of Cabal Colossus that you'll find during the strike are gonna be a pain in the ass, but honestly, they aren't even remotely the most difficult things to deal with. We'll get to that later on though. This strike is all about barrier and unstoppable champions, and of course void shields. You heard right though, void shields are the only type of shields that you're going to have to deal with during the entire strike. Which means that video that I put out a little bit ago about the blinding nades truth teller is going to get tons of usage if you have one of those. You don't have to go hard with your team's loadout on this one, but there are a few suggestions that I do have. First is a crowd control type super, and it doesn't matter if it's silence and squall, shadow shot, or bottom tree hammers. As long as you have something to clear out an area of enemies, you'll be set. There are tons of moments in the strike where you'll benefit from these supers in case your team needs a little bit of breathing room, so don't skip out on using a few of these in there. Next is your weapons. A lot of this strike you'll be fighting at range, since fighting Cabal in close quarters is near suicide. For this, my team used a lot of scout rifles that had explosive payload, which made extremely short work of any type of barrier champs that we came across. Now for myself personally, I used a night watch with rapid hit and explosive payload, but honestly, any explosive payload scout rifle is going to do wonders for you. For our energy weapons, we all had the same idea on my team, a truth teller with the blinding nades. Not just because blinding nades are so incredibly useful for survivability, but also because we all had unstoppable grenade launcher rounds equipped on our armor. If you pair that with breach and clear, most of the unstoppable champs aren't going to last 10 seconds around your group. And finally, for our heavy weapon, we had anarchy for obvious reasons. Damage over time plus unstoppable grenades make this thing an absolute no-brainer. However, that does not mean you have to use this exact loadout. The one thing I do recommend over all others is a scout rifle with explosive payload. It's going to be your workhorse through the entire strike, and it doesn't matter if this scout is a kinetic or an energy. Just make sure you take one and you have anti-barrier rounds with it. Oh, and a weapon that has void damage is like super important, because if you don't have that, you're gonna be SOL in no time. As for armor mods, you'll want to bring the classics like protective light, arc resistance, concussive dampener, and sniper damage resistance. I can't tell you what you're exactly going to have the most problem with in there, since it can vary from run to run and team to team, but what I ran with was both a concussive dampener and sniper damage protection mod on my chest piece, and I came out just fine for the most part. Remember too, if you decide to go the route of bringing a grenade launcher with blinding nades and anarchy, rolling double grenade launcher scavenger is going to be clutch for you when you don't even know you need it. Now for the actual strike itself. Like I've told you before, as long as you take these things easygoing, you will be okay, I promise you. There's nothing that this strike throws at you that you won't be able to solve with patience, minus the final boss. A lot of this Grandmaster is also learning where the champions spawn and how to deal with them. If this is your first time running Insight Terminus as a Grandmaster, there is one spot that I think might trip you up for your first time. So the first time you see Pelican? Whatever his name is. The first time you see the final boss, he'll be messing with a Vex Conflux. After which you have to build a plate while defending it from a few enemies that stumble out of a Vex gate in front of you. The surprise doesn't come until you build the plate fully. When that happens, you'll be greeted by two unstoppable incinerators that can easily wipe you and your team if you're not ready for them. This is where those grenade launchers with unstoppable rounds come into play. If you set up a few anarchy tripwires or have truth tellers at the ready, these two will be as harmless as kittens, and you will make extremely short work out of them both. Directly after that, you'll be up against the room that you might be dreading the most, but believe me, it's not nearly as bad as you think. You're going to want to be patient as you and your team come into this room first. Use those scout rifles to get angles on some of the enemies and blind them as they come if you have a truth teller with you. Once you clear out this room, you'll find our not so friendly final boss messing with another conflux. Once you get him out of the room, you'll have the next batch of enemies to face. One of the easiest ways to deal with these enemies is to have your team stay towards the back of the room where you have to deposit the 2 arc charges. Stay back there and pick off everything you can, and once you feel like you've done all that you can from that vantage point, go up and slay the champion Colossus or anything that you have to deal with that maybe hasn't come into your field of view. Once you slay that Colossus, it drops one of the arc charges that you need to deposit here at the back of the room where you stayed. And it's worth to note that additional enemies will spawn, but only after you pick up the arc charge. So if you want to, you can kill the champion so that it drops the charge, and then just clear out the rest of the room, do an ammo run, set up, whatever your team needs to do before you pick up that arc charge. And since there are 2 arc charges that you need to deposit, you'll need to do this twice. So just remember to take it slow and you will be fine. Next, we have the final boss battle. The most difficult part to this fight is the amount of times you have to enact the 5 Ds of dodgeball: dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge. The reason I say this is because the sheer amount of war beasts, gladiators, and grenades that the Cabal throw at you during this fight is going to cause you to consistently be on the move. Now, if you've played this strike before, which I hope you have, you'll know there's going to be moments where you'll have to build 3 plates around the arena. When you or your team go to do this, it'll be a focused effort. Use those crowd control supers to clear out as many enemies as you can, and use those blinding grenades, if you have them, to prevent anything that spawns from closing in on you too quickly so that you can build a plate. Since enemies spawn endlessly, but only after you kill a certain amount, this whole entire fight is going to be a battle of attrition and patience. As long as you don't try and get too ballsy as you do this, you'll be set as long as you take your time to do it. For those of you out there who want whatever advantage that you can possibly get, you'll be glad to know that there is a cheese spot during the final battle. It's kind of hard for me to explain in words, so just look at what's going on right now and you'll understand. Whenever you're sitting in this spot, there is a very little chance that enemies can get to you. Granted, there are a few rare occasions to where a stray grenade or flame shot or whatever can get to you, but you will be fairly protected if you stay there. Just remember, if Kargan decides to use his void attack on you, you're going to need to crouch so you don't get hit by it. That way it can go straight over your head and you will be fine. The one downside to this spot though is that whenever you're in this position, it can only work with one person. The more people you have there, the more enemies flock to that point and the less useful it actually becomes. So if you're running this with your friends and somebody happens to have not the greatest gear for this specific fight, you can tell them to sit in that spot and just plink away at everything with a scout rifle. They'll be fine. At the end of the day though, patience is key. There's a reason why I hammer on the fact of just take your time. If you can control the battlefield, you'll get this done no matter how long it takes. But that is going to be it for me for today, guys. If you like the video and you want to see more, you know the whole entire drill of liking and subscribing. If you like live content, I stream on Twitch every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll have a link for that down below. And if you have any questions, please feel free to either ask them in my Twitch chat or down in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you all next time. And remember, keep your heads up and be kind to each other. Bye now.